Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and 2024 has brought hundreds and hundreds of new features to iPhone with iOS, starting with iOS 17.3 in January, and we ended the year with iOS 18.2 in December. We forget many of the features that we take for granted today, which become part of our daily use case, and there's even many more that we don't use daily but are great. I went back to the start of 2024 to see what features released this year and are the best, and also some that disappointed the most or are the worst. Back in January 2024, the first public release was iOS 17.3, and this added a feature that we take for granted, but it's great. If we go into Settings, scroll down, and we go into our options for Face ID and passcode, put in our passcode. Once we scroll down, you'll see a new option for stolen device protection. This was added back at the beginning of this year. It adds another layer of security to your iPhone in the event that it's stolen and someone knows your passcode. So you can enable this. It'll set up your phone for end-to-end encryption if you enable it, and then you can actually have it always from a familiar location or always when it requires that security delay to turn it off. So if you turn it back off, it will require Face ID, and there could be a delay just to make sure that they can't get into it for about an hour or so. So that was a nice feature they added, and it seems like something we've had for a very long time. Something else that was added with iOS 17.4 was the ability to sideload third-party apps or add additional app stores, such as the Alt Store. So people in the European Union, in order to comply with rules there, have the option to install third-party app stores from Epic, play Fortnite and other things. It still hasn't rolled out around the world though, but there are some hints of it in the latest versions of iOS 18, so maybe we'll see that sometime in 2025. iOS 17.5 also added a really helpful feature, and it had to do with tracking in Find My. And with iOS 17.5, they added the ability for third-party Bluetooth trackers to notify you if it's nearby and doesn't belong to you. So it keeps you from being tracked if you don't want to. So that's something that sort of is standardized throughout the industry now, and Apple brought that with iOS 17.5. All of the next major features started with iOS 18 though. Of course, there's a few obvious ones that we've seen already. You can now arrange icons wherever you want, so that's something that started with iOS 18, and many of these features we've wanted for a long time started with iOS 18. So you can arrange icons, maybe place one here. It still sort of snaps to a grid, but at least you can place them wherever you'd like. Of course, we have the dark mode icons they added as well, where we can switch between that. So that's something we take advantage of, but we've had since September. So we can enable a background that's dark or light, automatic, have tinted backgrounds, and more. So this is something that's newer for iOS. Of course, we can get rid of labels, have larger icons, and much more. So this was great to have them add this, and probably one of the best features we've seen is RCS messaging. So if we go into our settings, and as long as your carrier supports it, all you need to do is go down to your apps and then messages. Within messages, if you have the option, you'll now have the option for RCS messaging. You can enable this. You may also have an option for RCS business messaging, but this is something that they added with this update. It allows for things such as emoji reactions with Android users or just using SMS. Group chats should perform much better with Android users as well. You can send higher quality photo and video. Of course, it allows for things as long as RCS is enabled here in messages for larger file sizes, real-time reply dots or indicators, reader read receipts, and you can send messages over Wi-Fi or cellular. To go along with messaging, the phone app got a major update this year. We have T9 dialing. So if you start to dial, you'll see Apple Computer as I dial 1-800, My Apple, and then you'll see your different options here. This is a great addition we've wanted for years, and it's finally here. So this is something they added this year that we probably should have had for many years. Another thing people were really happy to see this year, and one of the best features, is the ability to lock an app. If we maybe want to lock a specific app, require Face ID, maybe for podcasts, we can do that, require Face ID, and we can also hide it as well. So if we want to lock this app, we can do that, but with many third-party apps, we can also hide and lock. So if we require Face ID here, you'll see hide and require Face ID. Again, another feature people have wanted for years that you now have the option for with this year's iOS 18 update. Another thing I think people take for granted today is we can now customize the lock screen and get rid of the icons if you don't want them. If you don't want the flashlight icon here, you can get rid of it. The same with camera, now that we have camera control and other buttons, or you can delete them entirely or add something else such as halide camera or maybe Instagram. So we now have lots of options. If we don't want any, just tap done, and that's it. You have no more options on the lock screen if you want to get rid of those. So that's something very simple that I think many people forgot about. iOS 18 also brought something people have wanted for a long time that really want to manage their battery. Depending on the device you have, of course, I'm not sure why Apple does this, but if we go to battery health, we have the option, of course, to see our cycle count and our capacity, but if we go under charging, we can now change the charge limit. Now, I typically allow Apple to manage this itself with optimized battery charging, but you can manage this as well, bringing it down maybe to 90% or 80%, whatever works for you, but I'll set it to 100% and then leave optimized battery charging on so the iPhone manages itself. But at least you have the option on certain iPhones. Unfortunately, they didn't bring it to all iPhones. Another one of the best features, now keep in mind there are hundreds of features and I just picked out what I thought was the best, at least for now, is if we go into Notes, we now have the option to do voice transcriptions directly in Notes or even in the Voice Memo app as well if you have a supported device. So maybe we want to record an audio file here. This is a new file talking about iOS 18, iOS 17, and the best features of 2024 for iPhone. So you'll see we go here, tap on this, and it has the voice transcription already and summary if you have Apple Intelligence. We'll talk more about that in just a moment, but you can see a summarization of whatever you're working on as well. So really nice features in this update that they added that I think some people may have forgotten about already. Another thing is if you speak multiple languages, you're communicating with someone else regularly, maybe in Spanish or English or both, you can go into your keyboard settings now and combine those. If we go down to keyboard, go to our keyboards here, we can add a new keyboard, and maybe we'll just pick Spanish. You'll pick Spanish maybe from Mexico, and then we can add it to an English keyboard or add a new keyboard separately. If we add it to the English keyboard, now if we go in and maybe type again, we'll go back into Notes. Once we go into type, once we switch back, it says English and Espanol, and you'll see that down here in the bottom right. So you can type in either language, it will recognize it, hello, or hola, it will recognize where it's coming from and then give suggestions based on the actual language you're typing. So that's great to see them do that, and I know many people have wanted that for years. It's not available for all languages, but it's available for quite a few. I think some of the best features in 2024 have to do with accessibility. Apple works really hard to make sure that if maybe you have low vision or maybe you have limited use of your extremities, you have the option for something to help you. If we go into accessibility, scroll down, Apple added eye tracking this year. This is great if you have limited use of your extremities and maybe you want to use this to navigate your phone. You can enable this, then set this up, follow the dot around the screen using your eyes. It will calibrate, and then you can use this to control your phone. So as I stare at maybe the blue dot there, the purple one next, as it moves around and I stare at it, it recognizes that and helps me control the phone with it. Now with eye tracking set up, I can look at eye tracking and then simply shut it off and turn it off, and then it works just fine if you want to actually use this. I think it's a great feature that they added and definitely helpful for many people. Also, another thing they added this year, I think that gets overlooked or forgotten, if we scroll down, we have vocal shortcuts. We can use vocal shortcuts to maybe have an action on the phone based on an utterance or just a word we set. So if we turn that on and then maybe we add an action, we can use this to set up a vocal shortcut to recognize my voice when I want to do something specific on the phone. It's a great feature, definitely worth checking out if you're not familiar with it, and something that Apple added this year. One of the best features Apple added that I think is super helpful that many people forget about has to do with if you're in a bad situation. That's under Emergency SOS. If we have a supported device in a supported area, you can now use satellite via SOS and send live photo and video based on what you need. So if someone you're connected to actually needs a photo or video, you can send that via satellite with your phone and get some additional help or more information. Maybe you don't know where you are, but you can send a photo of a landmark and then they can help identify where you're at. There's a lot of different options that go along with this. Of course, Apple focuses a lot on this and it works really well. I've actually utilized the crash detection before. It recognized when I was in an accident a couple years ago and then actually started to call for help. Thankfully, everyone was okay, so I canceled it, but it's something that's there if you need it, and it just adds another level of security if you need that. Now, iOS 18.1 added a few features that I think people have forgotten about or they may use every single day. The first one is phone call recording. Now, some people are annoyed that you actually have to notify someone that it's recording the call, but that has to do with a lot of laws around the world. If we go into the phone, in the upper left, we have an icon. If it's supported in your area, tap on the icon and it will announce the call will be recorded. Then it will record the call, and as it records it, it will also do live transcripts. So it's recording it, then we can go to take the call into notes, and now we have a live transcript of what we just had. So you'll see it here. You can turn it on or off, whatever you have, and it goes back and forth and actually records who's talking to who in what order. So this is great to have. It's not available in all regions, but something they added this year. Another thing they added with iOS 18.1 is the ability to use the hearing test and hearing aid functionality in certain countries. This is a great feature. Again, if you need it for accessibility users, we can use our AirPods and then just take a hearing test here. So if we go into it, and you have the option with AirPods Pro 2, you now have the option for hearing protection or hearing assistance if you need it. And they're certified FDA hearing aids. So that's something that you have available and one of the best features we've seen if it's needed. Of course, this one's a little bit debatable as Apple Intelligence was released with iOS 18.1. This sort of falls under the biggest disappointment this year. We'll talk about that in a moment, but Apple Intelligence brought a few nice features. My favorite is notification summaries. Not everyone likes them, but it really gives me sort of an overview of what people are talking about in messages or Telegram or Discord, and sort of lets me know what's going on. It's not always 100% accurate, but generally gives you an overview, and I think it will improve over time. But again, it will sort of combine things and let you know. If we go back into notes, of course, we have writing tools. So if we tap done, we can go into Apple Intelligence, describe a change. That's something that came with iOS 18.2, and all this integration is helpful with things such as proofread, rewrite, friendly, professional, and concise. Again, with iOS 18.2, we got additional enhancements with ChatGPT integration. However, it's questionable whether that's needed or not since you can use the ChatGPT app, but if you wanted to compose something, you have that option. I've gone over that in depth in other videos though. But we do have Image Playground, Image Wand, and Genmoji, but I don't know that they're the best features. Some people really like them, but at this point, I think it's a little bit up in the air about it. A couple things I wanted to mention that some people may consider the best features is the redesigned control center where it's fully customizable. Personally, I don't care for this at all. I set it back to basically what we had before. I like a very simple control center and all the controls I use on one page, but you have the option to customize it. Apple, of course, updated settings this year with dark icons. With iOS 18.2, we even got dark icons and sort of updated this so it's a little bit easier just to scroll through and then see all our apps at the bottom. On the iPhone 16 models, we got visual intelligence. This isn't super helpful just yet. I think it will improve as we've had some of these capabilities for years with Google, but overall I like that it's there. Also, of course, we got the calculator on the iPad, and also we have math notes. So if you want to use math notes, use more advanced calculators, you have the option to just write something out. You can see here 2 plus 7, and then you can have it sum this or give you the information about this, and it's really helpful if you want to use that. So nice integrations, but I don't know that they're the best features. I would say the biggest disappointments of the year, again, have to do with Apple Intelligence not coming to more devices and being very limited this time as far as the overall contextual Siri version we're waiting for. So those would be the biggest disappointments along with Mail. Many people were hoping Mail would be phenomenal with the new update. So if we go into it, we have the option here at the top for all mail, primary. We can switch back and forth and have it categorize it. But I know a lot of people just switch it off and go back to list view because they don't really like it. So that's something that I think many people were looking forward to, including myself, but I haven't found it very useful. But let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Now, the worst feature of the year, I would give to Photos. Many people message me every day asking, how can I change this? And I even made a video about it showing how you can make it similar to iOS 17. I think it's gotten better with some updates recently, but if we go into Photos, it has an all-new layout that some people just really don't like. I have it set up pretty simply with just utilities, pinned collections, and then my photos above. However, many people were disappointed with this. Initially, there was a carousel version, and I think it was probably the least received app on the phone. Now, some people love this. My daughter actually really likes the photo app now since it sort of categorizes everything and allows customization. Personally, I just like it to be as simple as possible, but you have have the option to fully customize it if you want to. Now, as far as the best feature of the year, well, this is going to be highly debatable. Some people would say it's RCS. Others would say it's the customization in dark mode icons. And some others would say, well, they just like the new Siri with Apple Intelligence. For me, I would probably say my favorite thing has to do with sort of the audio transcriptions. It's something that I find very usable. The rest of the things are great, but let me know what your favorite feature is in the comments below. Of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.